Welcome back. You're watching All Angles, and last year's crime stats paint a shocking picture of kidnappings across South Africa. More than 4,000 kidnapping cases were recorded between July and September of 2022. Yesterday, alleged kidnapping kingpin Ramos Nangy appeared in court on multiple charges of kidnapping. The Mozambican national has been remanded in custody until next week. Now, how significant is his arrest? Well, let's rope in Kidnapping and Extortion Manager at TSU International, Herman Bosman, who joins us via Zoom. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Herman. And maybe let's start with that very question. Quite a significant arrest of an alleged kingpin yesterday, who will be remanded in custody. But how significant is this arrest, given the scope or the scourge of kidnappings and its growth over the last couple of years in South Africa?
Good day to you and the viewers. Yes, it is definitely very significant. I'm really glad that the police followed up on the information provided and the whereabouts of Nangy, and that he was arrested over the weekend. It is essential specifically that we, in many cases, only get to do with the people executing the kidnapping and the low-ranking officials within those structures. Where in a scenario like this of Nangy, I think it is very important to understand the international connection, and that we get to the people organizing and behind kidnappings in South Africa.
And maybe just unpack that for us. How much of an international presence is there in these syndicates, wherein we're not just seeing kidnappings happen in and around South Africa, but there is a greater reason for these kidnappings, whether it be human trafficking or whatever it may be? How prevalent is this international component of kidnappings?
Well, I think over the last 20 years, we saw a steady increase of kidnapping and other related international syndicates operating in our country. And more so as the economy opened, we saw a growth of that. And copycats definitely also copying that and opening their own so-called companies and businesses within the same structures, competing with those international syndicates. So it's not anymore just international syndicates that's responsible for kidnapping. Many years ago, we would have argued that this is not a typical South African crime, and it's not been. But lately, it has become and grown into that. And currently, as we're looking into kidnapping incidents occurring, we're looking at 44 roughly incidents per day.
I mean, that's quite scary. 44 is quite a significant number. And perhaps as we reflect on that number, you could maybe explain the patterns that we are seeing in kidnappings. Traditionally, one would have thought that it's young children that are stolen for a ransom or whatever it may be. But in South Africa, we've seen that it's a huge scope from businessmen, business owners, to children and other demographics as well. Tell us about those patterns, and really what a family can do should they find themselves in a situation of that nature.
Well, first of all, the incidents I referred to, 44 incidents, are not all high net and high level kidnapping for ransom with long periods of detention. Many of those are express kidnappings where people are targeted at ATM machines where they draw money, and then after a few hours go back and draw some more money and then release. So it is a very short-term express type. And you have also kidnappings where a person would be in a minibus taxi or in another taxi, and then not dropped off, but be raped and detained for a while and then dropped off. So there's a wide array of types. Also criminal vendetta, where syndicates kidnap one another, and there's money demanded for the release of money owed due to various crimes. So it's a wide spectrum of types of kidnappings. There's also a lot of false publicity pertaining to kidnapping, specifically children at malls. That is not true. That is absolutely false and sending out the wrong information. Yes, we do have a problem with that, but not to the level, and in many cases wrongly so, published for sick sensation. Yes, be wary with your children, and there is definitely children taken. I'm not denying that. But it doesn't help to wrongfully publish incidents that did not occur, or when a missing person is reported, that's also distorted in many incidents as a kidnapping or an abduction type of scenario. The question on what should you do, I would first of all want to start and say what can you do to prevent this, and that is protect your personal information. Specifically, children on the internet. You play games on the internet, you don't know who you're playing with, and you convey information. Also, information when you complete questionnaires, and people prey on that and obtain information that you do not realize what you're actually providing. Furthermore, when you drive or when you go to school, be aware of, is somebody following you? Who is following you? Where do you park your vehicle? Be sure that it's a safe location. We've said a lot about routine and trying to vary those as far as possible. It's not always that easy, but as far as possible, also try and do that. When we look at employment, do we know who's working for us? Do we know who's the friends coming to the people working for us? So in many cases, we don't even have ID or passport detail of people that work for us. Make sure that you know very well who that person is and that you can revert back to the people related to those people. When something like this struck you, it is devastating. It's definitely one of the worst crimes that can happen to any person. It is uncertain, it is severely painful and traumatic, and you need to get help and somebody to assist you in the management of an incident like a kidnapping, to take your hand, because the emotions will run high, your rational thinking will, in many cases, be very low, and it will be an uphill battle to know what to do next. But be very cautious who you involve in a matter of a kidnapping to assist you. Make sure that their credentials are verified and that they are trustworthy entities that's registered to render a service with regard to kidnapping incident management.
And when we talk about the kidnapping incident management, when you worked for the state, you were part of the team that developed equipment around these kidnappings and negotiations. And so one then wonders, should we be finding ourselves in an unfortunate situation where a family member or whoever it is kidnapped? How is a successful negotiation conducted? What does that sound like?
Well, remember, the person on the other side is an individual, it's a human being that's in the wrong business of kidnapping. But it is somebody that wants something from you. So listen carefully, make sure that you understand what is said, that there's no misunderstanding in communication. You can also tell the person you're writing down, I don't want to miscommunicate this. I want to make sure we're on the same page here. Do I hear you correctly? And verify and clarify that what is being said is exactly understood in both the person saying it and your understanding of the language used. In many cases, there's a language barrier or words used and wordplay that can cause misunderstanding. So first of all, ensure that when you do receive that communication, that you do understand what is required from you. And then to negotiate in good faith with, as far as understanding what is demanded and the current position. There's no misunderstanding when it comes to, you need to ensure the other person is well, your loved one and the person taken as well. And kidnappers also do understand this. You need to ensure that and ask to speak to your loved one taken. When you then do approach the police, make 100% sure that they do get the police hostage negotiation team involved and that they assist you. When you go to a police station, and this has happened so many times that the public will tell me, I've been turned away because I must wait 24 hours. There is no 24-hour in our legislation or any process of reporting a person taken in a kidnapping or missing person where it is absolutely clear that there's definitely a wrongdoing and that a person should have been home by now. When you report a missing person, in that regard, they should document it and circulate it and get the correct role players involved. So if ever you refer to a 24-hour or 48-hour waiting period, please go to another police station or phone a superior or get a high-rank officer to assist you in this regard.
No, thank you very much for those insights, Herman. Very important developments indeed, and this notion that there are now express kidnappings, which average about 44 a day. Thank you very much for those insights. That is Herman Bosman, who is Kidnapping and Extortion Manager at TSU International, giving us insights on the scourge of kidnappings in South Africa. And imagine that express kidnappings, criminals really do have a varied way of conducting their illicit and often cruel business.